Hey guys, so today I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about orientation. Last weekend, or last Thursday, Friday, I went to orientation for the University of California of Davis. It was an experience. You come out with your class schedule, and that's really all I had to say about it. But what I wanted to talk about was a few misconceptions of orientation. The first misconception of orientation that I discovered was sometimes people say, like, oh, you're going to meet all these great friends at orientation, like, you might find a roommate, all this stuff. Though it is possible to find friends at orientation, yes, not everyone does. The leader of, like, the main planner of orientation at UC Davis, the last, like, hour that we were there, had us raise our hands if we had made great friends that weekend, and literally less than a third of us raised our hand, and it was really kind of awkward for her because she was like, oh, yeah, it was an O for us too, and we looked next to the person next to us and realized, yeah, this was a really awkward week, like a really awkward 2 days. So there was that. The one thing that was nice was that we were in pretty small groups when we were just in our orientation advising sessions, and that was nice because we were only with about 6 people, like total, including myself, and it really gave us time to work with our orientation leader, kind of ask questions and get to know each other a little bit better. Like, the only people that I even really got to know were in that group, so that was cool. And like, on to talking to some of them in the future. I actually really liked my orientation leader, uh, probably the most out of everyone, so that was cool. But other than that, yeah. Another misconception is that your advisors will be actually helpful that day. So the advisors, especially if you're in a smaller major, aren't necessarily for your major. They're there, they're in your college, which was nice because for the University of California of Davis, you're broken out by your college. Like, my orientation was only College of Letter and Science. But that college is a really wide spectrum of majors. Like, we have the arts and humanities and the social sciences and math and sciences. So it's a super wide array of stuff. We have ABs, which is their BA, and BS majors in large quantities, and I literally happened to be the only person there for my major. So that was a little awkward because we were broken out by our major with our orientation leaders, so I got put with all psych majors even though I'm not a psych major. So when it came to like looking at requirements, I really had to come in with a lot of my own prior knowledge. This is a tip that I have in general and a misconception. Don't go in thinking that they're going to give you all the information you need to know and that they're the gods of information. Yes, they're more experienced than you, and yes, they've been at the school longer and they're trained to help you, so use their help. But also know what you need to know going in. Like, I had already planned some of my schedules ahead of time. I already knew a ton about my major requirements and like had that all kind of mapped out. So especially if you're in a small major, and especially if you're kind of like the minority in your group, come in knowing the information that you need to know, and it'll help you start a better conversation with your orientation leader, especially if you know what questions to ask to begin with. So I felt like my experience was a lot smoother than some people's because of that, because I kind of knew what direction I needed to go in. And then I got, of course, a lot of extra information answered, but it helped having that basis of knowledge. It also kind of like prevented an orientation leader or an advisor from like sending you the wrong direction. If they're advising for something slightly different than you're doing, you could be like, hey, actually, this is my requirement for my major, it's slightly different, so what do we need to do to work around that? So just go in knowing your stuff to some extent. UC Davis uses Schedule Builder, so go into your My UC Davis page, go to Schedule Builder, log in, and you can create like fake schedules. ahead of time and start looking at that. Now, you make more orientation, you have time to do it. Like, I had made a few ahead of time and started thinking about what classes I needed to take, and honestly, I changed a good majority of it while I was there. But it was nice that I already kind of knew how to use the software, because they do go through it, but it's nice having familiarity with it before then, so you can spend more time actually looking at what classes you need and what would be most beneficial, and you can create a schedule that's the most optimal for you, as opposed to, oh my gosh, registration's in half an hour and I just need to have a schedule that doesn't clash with each other. So yeah, it gave me a lot more time to like actually pick a schedule that I'm gonna not be miserable with next year. So that was good. But just a little breakdown of like kind of the order of how things went. My UC Davis, your Davis email will send you an email about guidebook. When you get that, definitely use it. It is an app on your phone that gives you everything from your schedules to pictures of previous orientations to your parents' schedules if they're doing the family session, to pre-orientation tasks to make sure that you don't have anything like that's going to hold up your registration. You can also see that on my schedule builder. It'll like show up in a big red box of like, you don't have your immunization record in, or you have this other hold on your account that you need to deal with before registration, or you'll be kind of screwed until pass 2. But also on the app, you can go to orientation staff. I don't know if you can see this. I'm pretty sure you can't. You can go to orientation staff and look up your orientation leader once you get your passes. Like, I read my person's bio before we started orientation, so I knew a little bit about them. They talked a lot about their bike in it, but they ended up being really cool. And you get to read all about that, which was fun. So it's really helpful. They also have a built-in campus map on there, which is super helpful. It's a big campus, and you walk back and forth a lot. The grand majority of the time, you do have orientation leaders that are kind of helping you get around, but not always. So be mindful of that, watch your surroundings, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Most people are super nice there, and it's not a big deal. Another cool thing that they had was the hospitality desk that was available the whole time during orientation if anything happened. Housing is available for those that want to stay overnight. You stay in the Tesoro dorms. So if you're looking at staying in Tesoro, you'll get a kind of a preview of where you're staying. I personally don't live super far from Davis, so my mom and I went home in between, and we just came back the next morning, and it worked out fine too. But yeah, that's the My Guidebook app. Definitely download it. It's totally worth it. And it's also nice when you're sitting in lecture and you're like, okay, how much longer do I have in this? Like, you don't get, UC Davis tries really hard to be paperless, so you don't get a printed out schedule like your parents do for when you're doing things. So it's nice to be able to look on Guidebook, be like, oh, okay, good, we only have half an hour till lunch, whatever else. Another thing that's kind of confusing where Guidebook helps is on your badge. You get a badge and it says your name and it says your major. It also says your orientation leader that you have to find at the beginning of the day. And then on the back, it has your advising time meeting. It's like, it's on the first day and it's at the end of the day. They start at 7 o'clock and go till 8:30. You have 15 minutes with your orientation leader alone where you just kind of like solidify things and make sure everything's good for registration the next day. If anything major comes up, that's where you like start to figure it out with them. So that advising session was super helpful. And that was cool. So that information is all in your badge. You have to wear your badge at all times. It's what allows you to get in and out, what allows you to get into dining, and all these other things. If you have dietary restrictions, like I do, I have celiac. So I just put that when I was registering for orientation that I had a special dietary need. And then it's super cool. They just put a dining hall meal ticket in your badge pocket thing, so when you're wearing your name tag you have it in there, and it just leaves open the 3 slots for the 3 meals that are provided with orientation. It was a little awkward, I'm not gonna lie. The first time I had to go to the dining hall alone because I was the only one that had dietary restrictions in my orientation. And everyone else was eating in the ARC, which is the back part of the gym, and had this like catered meal. Like one of the meals was from Ludi's, and I'm not too sure the other ones were, but like it was like Ludi's, which is like a barbecue dinner, and then the lunch the first day was fajitas, and the lunch the second day was like burgers and chicken and all that kind of stuff. But they were all eating there, and I had to kind of separate myself. Luckily, I knew campus and knew where I was going and could find dining and kind of knew what was going on, but it was still a little awkward, especially since the first day of lunch, the dining hall didn't open until halfway through my group's lunch period, so I had to like eat in 20 minutes and get back, and it was a little awkward. But something that's super nice is that they have a chef that's specifically for dietary needs, so if you have any dietary needs and you're looking at the UCs, specifically UC Davis, don't fear, you're going to be fine. And it was really nice to sit alone because you're always around people, so it's nice to just kind of separate. But you get lots of talks. You hear from the police department on campus. You hear from the fire department on campus and how to burn down your room. You learn a lot of different resources on campus, about the different centers, where different things are located, and kind of get information for that, different places you can intern, all that kind of stuff. You also find out about different ways to pick classes, hear some students' perspectives, talk to your orientation leader a lot to kind of build schedules, talk all that out, and that was super helpful. It's probably the most valued time in it. You get a My First Year as an Aggie book. You have to keep that for move-in too, but it just kind of breaks down like all the GE requirements and all the other things that you need when you're registering for classes and all those other things. Your orientation leader will also go through certain pages with you on that, making sure you've met certain requirements before you sign up for classes that you may or may not have prerequisites for. So that was super helpful. Just keep that around with you as well. Yeah, and then the second day, it was pretty short. You mainly just go to a few lectures about a few different things, kind of keeping in the same trend. And then you register for classes at the end of the day and hope for the best, and then you're released after that. But one cool thing about orientation is that the night of the first day, starting at 9:40 going till 11, there's something called How Do You Rec? And you learn about all the different clubs on campus, and then you actually go to the gym, and it's like a club fair in the gym area, and there's like basketball, there's like a Zumba lesson going on. You could turn in your name badge temporarily and get a henna packet, and you could sit and do henna with people. You got to tour the facilities if you wanted to. There was a giant game of dodgeball in the MAC, which is one of the bigger spaces. So that was fun. I mainly just talked to a bunch of the different clubs. I somewhat got talked into ROTC, which was dangerous, and Ultimate Frisbee, so I was able to look at a lot of the different club sports, a lot of the different programs on campus, etc. Sorry, there's a noise outside my door. But anyways, it's a super good experience as far as information. Socially, it was a little odd. It wasn't necessarily what I was looking for. There was a lot of immaturity that I wasn't prepared for and expecting, but I guess that's what college is. You also hear a little bit about housing, all that stuff. You get to talk from pretty much every major unit on campus. And your parents hear from a whole other set that they'll tell you about, which is how I got talked into joining the Student Alumni Association, even though I'm in my first quarter. And maybe I'll talk about that in a different video, but yes, I am now a member of the Student Alumni Association as a freshman. Thanks, Mom. But anyways, let me know how your orientations went, no matter what college you went to, how you felt that it was socially. Did you make friends? Did you hang out with people? Or did you ultimately just feel kind of isolated and awkward? I'd love to hear you guys' experiences, and I hope you have an awesome day and an awesome orientation if you're going into college.